The summer heat in Las Vegas was unforgiving. At 3:47 p.m., the temperature had climbed to 108 degrees Fahrenheit, and the asphalt on Fremont Street shimmered like liquid glass. In the parking lot of Big Al's Diner, a row of Harley-Davidsons stood silent, their chrome surfaces reflecting the merciless Nevada sun. Inside the diner, 8 members of the Desert Riders Motorcycle Club sat in their usual corner booth, the air conditioning providing momentary relief from the oppressive heat outside. Marcus Bear Thompson, a 47-year-old former Marine with a salt and pepper beard and arms covered in military tattoos, sat at the head of the table. Beside him was James Preacher Sullivan, 52, whose nickname came from his habit of quoting scripture despite his rough appearance. Danny Rodriguez, 39, the club's treasurer and a mechanic by trade, was engaged in conversation with Tommy Wrench Patterson, 44, about a carburetor rebuild. Victoria Viper Chen, 35, the only female member present, sipped her black coffee while scrolling through her phone. Robert Boomer Williams, 58, a Vietnam veteran with one prosthetic leg, was finishing his burger. Michael Chains Bradley, 33, and Anthony Ghost Morrison, 41, completed the group. "This heat's gonna kill somebody today," Tommy said, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the AC. "Saw on the news this morning, 3 people hospitalized for heat stroke already." "That's Vegas in July for you," Victoria replied, not looking up from her phone. "Every summer, the same story." Bear took a long drink of his iced tea and glanced out the window. The diner was located on the edge of a residential neighborhood, a far cry from the glittering strip that tourists knew. This was the real Las Vegas. Working families, struggling single parents, people trying to make ends meet in a city that promised dreams but often delivered hardship. Across the street, in a small 2-bedroom house with peeling yellow paint, Sarah Mitchell stood in her kitchen, her hands trembling as she tried to explain to her husband why dinner wasn't ready yet. At 32 years old, Sarah had once been vibrant and confident, a nursing student with dreams of helping others. Now, after 3 years of marriage to Derek Cole, she was a shadow of her former self. Her blonde hair, once thick and lustrous, hung limp around her thin face. Dark circles shadowed her blue eyes, and a fading bruise on her left cheekbone was carefully concealed with makeup. "I told you I wanted to eat at 4 o'clock, Derek said, his voice low and controlled. At 38, Derek Cole was an imposing figure, 6 feet 2 inches tall, 210 pounds of muscle maintained by obsessive gym sessions. His brown hair was cut military short, and his hazel eyes could switch from charming to cold in an instant. He wore his off-duty clothes, jeans and a tight-fitting black t-shirt that showed off his physique. His badge and service weapon sat on the counter, constant reminders of his authority. "I know, Derek, I'm sorry," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Emma needed help with her homework, and you what?" Derek stepped closer, invading her space. "You put that kid before your husband? Before the man who puts a roof over your heads?" Emma Mitchell sat in the living room, her small body frozen on the worn couch. At 8 years old, she had learned to read the warning signs in Derek's voice. She clutched her worn teddy bear, Mr. Buttons, and tried to focus on the cartoon playing on the television, but her ears were tuned to the kitchen. Emma had her mother's blonde hair and blue eyes, but where Sarah had become timid, Emma possessed a defiant spark that Derek hadn't yet managed to extinguish. "Derek, please, I'll have it ready in 15 minutes, Sarah pleaded, backing against the counter. "I just need to—" The slap came so fast that Sarah didn't have time to brace for it. Her head snapped to the side and she gasped in pain, her hand flying to her reddening cheek. "Don't make excuses," Derek hissed. "I work 12-hour shifts protecting this city, and I come home to this? To a wife who can't even have a simple meal ready?" In the living room, Emma's eyes filled with tears. She had witnessed these scenes dozens of times before, each one chipping away at her childhood innocence. She wanted to run to her mother, to protect her, but fear kept her glued to the couch. "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't cut it anymore, Sarah." Derek grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her flesh hard enough to leave marks. "I'm tired of your incompetence. Do you know how embarrassing it is? My colleagues talk about their wives, women who have their shit together, and here I am, stuck with you." He shoved her and Sarah stumbled, catching herself on the kitchen table. That was when Derek's hand closed into a fist. The first punch hit her in the stomach, driving the air from her lungs. Sarah doubled over, gasping, and Derek grabbed a handful of her hair, yanking her upright. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," he snarled. Emma couldn't take it anymore. She dropped Mr. Buttons and ran toward the kitchen. "Stop it! Leave my mommy alone!" Derek's head whipped toward the child, his eyes blazing. "Get back in that living room or you're next." But Emma had reached her breaking point. 3 years of watching her mother suffer. 3 years of walking on eggshells, 3 years of living in fear, it all came crashing down in that moment. Instead of retreating, she lunged at Derek, her small fists pounding uselessly against his legs. "I hate you! I hate you!" she screamed, Derek's face contorted with rage. He released Sarah and grabbed Emma by the upper arm, lifting her off the ground. The little girl cried out in pain as his grip tightened. "You little brat," Derek growled. "I'm going to teach you some respect." Something in Sarah broke. Despite her fear, despite the years of conditioning, she couldn't let him hurt her daughter. She launched herself at Derek, clawing at his face. "Let her go, Derek. Please let her go." The ensuing violence was brutal and swift. Derek threw Emma aside. The child crashed into the wall and crumpled to the floor and turned his full fury on Sarah. His fists flew, connecting with her face, her ribs, her arms, as she tried to defend herself. Sarah screamed, and the sound was raw and desperate. Emma, dazed and terrified, scrambled to her feet. Her mother's screams filled her ears, and she knew that if she didn't do something, Derek might kill her this time. The front door was right there. She ran for it, her small hands fumbling with the deadbolt that Derek always kept locked. Behind her, she could hear the sickening sounds of fists hitting flesh, her mother's cries growing weaker. Finally, the lock gave way. Emma burst through the door into the scorching afternoon heat. The sun blinded her temporarily, and she stood on the porch, disoriented. Then she saw them, the motorcycles across the street, the group of big, scary-looking men in leather vests sitting in the diner. Her mother's scream pierced the air again, and Emma made her decision. She ran. Her bare feet slapped against the hot pavement as she crossed the street, tears streaming down her face. She nearly fell twice but kept running, driven by pure desperation. The diner door seemed impossibly far away, but she finally reached it and shoved it open with all her might. The door crashed against the wall, and every head in Big Al's diner turned toward the small, disheveled girl standing in the entrance. Emma's blonde hair was wild, her face streaked with tears and dirt. A red mark was blooming on her upper arm where Derek had grabbed her, and her chest heaved as she struggled to breathe. Bear's instincts kicked in immediately. He was on his feet before his brain fully processed what he was seeing. The child's eyes were wide with terror, and she was looking directly at him. "Please," Emma sobbed, her voice breaking. "Please help. They're beating my mother. He's killing her. Please." The diner fell completely silent. Even Big Al, the 68-year-old owner who had seen just about everything in his 40 years of running the place, froze behind the counter. Victoria was the second person to move. She slid out of the booth and knelt down to Emma's level. "Sweetheart, where's your mother? Where is she?" Emma pointed a shaking finger across the street. "The yellow house. Please. He's hurting her. He won't stop." Bear's jaw tightened. He looked at Preacher, then at the others. No words were needed. In that moment, a decision was made, one that would change all of their lives. "Danny, call 911, Bear ordered, his voice hard as steel. "Boomer, Chains, Ghost. You're with me. Victoria, stay with the kid." "I'm coming with you," Tommy said, already heading for the door. They moved as a unit, years of brotherhood and shared experiences translating into seamless coordination. As they crossed the street, Bear could already hear it, a woman's screams coming from the yellow house, high-pitched and desperate. Behind them, Emma collapsed into Victoria's arms, sobbing. "Please save my mommy. Please save her." Victoria held the trembling child close, her own eyes hard with fury. "They will, baby, they will." Inside the yellow house, Derek had Sarah pinned against the kitchen counter, his hand around her throat. Her face was already swelling, blood trickling from her nose and a split lip. She clawed weakly at his hand, her vision dimming. "You're pathetic," Derek spat. "Absolutely pathetic. Maybe I should just—" The front door exploded inward. Derek's head snapped toward the sound, and his eyes widened as 5 large men in motorcycle club vests stormed into his house. Bear took in the scene in an instant, the battered woman, the overturned furniture, the blood on the floor. His fists clenched at his sides. "Let her go," Bear said, his voice deadly calm. "Now." Derek released Sarah, who slumped to the floor, gasping for air. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across his face, but then his training kicked in. He straightened up, and his hand instinctively moved toward where his gun usually sat on his hip. It wasn't there. It was on the counter, 3 feet away. "Who the hell are you?" Derek demanded, trying to regain his authority. "This is my house. Get out before I arrest you for breaking and entering." Tommy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Arrest us? You've got to be kidding." Preacher moved to Sarah's side, kneeling beside her. "Mom, you're safe now. We've got you." Sarah looked up at him through swollen eyes, disoriented and terrified. "Emma," she whispered. "Where's Emma?" "Your daughter's safe," Preacher assured her. "She's the one who came to get us. She's across the street with Victoria." Tears of relief mixed with the blood on Sarah's face. Derek's composure was cracking. "I'm a police officer. Do you understand what you're doing? You're assaulting a law enforcement officer. I'll make sure every one of you goes to prison." Bear stepped closer, and despite being 3 inches shorter than Derek, his presence was overwhelming. "You're a coward who beats women and children. That badge doesn't mean shit to me." "I'll kill you," Derek hissed, his muscles tensing. "You can try," Bear replied, "but there are 5 of us and 1 of you, and we're not scared little women you can push around." The sound of sirens began to wail in the distance. Danny had made the call, and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department was en route. Derek's eyes flicked toward the window, and something like panic crossed his face. "I'm the victim here," Derek said quickly, his tone shifting. "These men broke into my home and attacked me. My wife can confirm it. Sarah, tell them." Sarah, still on the floor with Preacher supporting her, looked at her husband. For 3 years, she had made excuses for him, had covered for him, had convinced herself that she somehow deserved his abuse. She thought of Emma, of her baby girl running for help, of the life of fear they had been living. "No," Sarah whispered. "What?" Derek's voice was sharp. "No," Sarah said louder, her voice growing stronger despite her injuries. "I won't lie for you anymore." Derek's face contorted with rage, and he lunged for his gun on the counter, but Chains was faster. The 33-year-old, who had grown up on the streets of East Vegas, moved with practiced efficiency, intercepting Derek and driving him backward. They crashed into the refrigerator, and Derek threw a punch that connected with Chain's jaw. Chain's head snapped back, but he didn't fall. Instead, he smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. "Bad move," Chains said. What followed was not a fight, but a lesson. Chains, backed by Ghost and Tommy, systematically dismantled Derek Cole's illusion of power. They didn't beat him savagely. They simply restrained him, forcing him to the ground and keeping him there, his face pressed against the tile floor he had stained with his wife's blood. "How does it feel?" Chains asked, his knee in Derek's back. "How does it feel to be powerless?" The sirens were getting closer. Bear looked at Sarah, who was now crying openly, Preacher's arm around her shoulders for support. "Ma'am, when the police get here, you tell them the truth," Bear said gently. "All of it. Every time he hit you, every threat he made. You tell them everything." "He's a cop," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "They'll believe him. They always believe him." "Not this time," Victoria's voice came from the doorway. She stood there with Emma clutched to her side, the little girl's face buried in Victoria's leather vest. "This time, there are witnesses. All of us." Emma lifted her head and saw her mother. "Mommy!" Sarah's arms opened, and Emma ran to her, the two of them embracing on the kitchen floor, both sobbing. Bear felt something tighten in his chest. He had a daughter himself, grown now, but he remembered those years when she was small and vulnerable. The police cars screeched to a halt outside, and within seconds, officers were pouring into the house. The lead officer, Sergeant Linda Hayes, a 20-year veteran with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes, took one look at the scene and immediately understood the complexity of what she was facing. "Someone want to tell me what happened here?" Sergeant Hayes demanded. Derek, still pinned to the floor, immediately started talking. "Sergeant, thank God you're here. I'm Officer Derek Cole, badge number 4782. These men broke into my home and assaulted me and my wife. I need you to—" "Shut up, Cole," Sergeant Hayes cut him off coldly. She had heard rumors about Derek Cole, whispers in the precinct about his temper, about complaints that mysteriously disappeared. She looked at Sarah's battered face, at the terrified child clinging to her, and she made her own decision about the truth. She turned to Bear. "You want to tell me your side?" Bear explained, clearly and concisely, how Emma had run into the diner, begging for help, how they had heard Sarah's screams from across the street, how they had entered the house to find Derek strangling Sarah. He left nothing out, including the part where they physically restrained Derek. Sergeant Hayes listened, her expression unreadable. Then she turned to Sarah. "Ma'am, I need you to tell me what happened. The truth." Sarah looked at Derek, who was staring at her with barely concealed fury. She looked at Emma, at the bikers who had risked everything to save them, at Sergeant Hayes's steady gaze, and she made the choice that would change everything. "He beat me," Sarah said, her voice trembling but clear. "He's been beating me for 3 years. Today, he tried to kill me." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Derek exploded. "She's lying! She's lying to cover for these thugs. Sergeant, you can't believe—" "I said shut up!" Sergeant Hayes snapped. She turned to one of the officers. "Read Officer Cole his rights. He's under arrest for domestic violence, assault and strangulation." "You can't do this!" Derek shouted as he was hauled to his feet, handcuffs clicking around his wrists. "I'm a cop. I'm one of you. This is bullshit. Sergeant, you're making a mistake." Sergeant Hayes stepped close to Derek, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "I've been waiting for someone to take you down, Cole. I've heard the stories. I've seen the complaints that disappeared. Not this time. This time, there are too many witnesses." As Derek was dragged out of the house, still protesting, the paramedics arrived. They immediately went to work on Sarah, assessing her injuries while trying to calm Emma, who refused to leave her mother's side. Bear stood back, watching it all unfold. He felt Victoria step up beside him. "Think that'll stick?" Victoria asked quietly. "I don't know," Bear admitted, "but we had to do something." "The kid's got guts," Victoria said, glancing at Emma. "Running to us like that. She saved her mother's life." Bear nodded. "Yeah, she did." Sergeant Hayes approached them, her notebook out. "I'm going to need statements from all of you. And understand this, you broke into a private residence. I could arrest you for that." "But you won't," Preacher said quietly. It wasn't a question. Sergeant Hayes sighed. "No, I won't. What you did was reckless and dangerous, but you probably saved that woman's life. However, this is going to get complicated. Cole has friends in the department, powerful friends. They're going to make your lives hell." "Let them try," Bear said flatly. As the sun began to set over Las Vegas, casting long shadows across Fremont Street, the full weight of what had happened started to sink in. Sarah was loaded into an ambulance, Emma beside her, clutching her hand. The little girl looked out the window as they pulled away, her eyes finding the group of bikers who had answered her desperate plea. Victoria waved, and Emma waved back, a tiny gesture that carried enormous meaning. Inside the ambulance, as the paramedic tended to her wounds, Sarah Mitchell stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything. For the first time in 3 years, Derek wasn't there. He couldn't hurt her. The relief was overwhelming, but so was the fear. What came next? Where would they go? How would they survive? The paramedic, a kind-faced woman named Rachel Turner, seemed to sense her thoughts. "You're going to be okay," Rachel said softly. "You and your daughter. You're going to make it through this." Sarah wanted to believe her. She desperately wanted to believe that this nightmare was finally over. But she had learned through bitter experience that endings were rarely clean, that escape was never as simple as just walking away. Across town, in the back of a police car, Derek Cole sat in handcuffs, his mind racing. His face was flushed with humiliation and rage. They had no idea who they were dealing with. He had been a cop for 15 years. He had connections, friends in the department, people who owed him favors. His partner, Officer Frank Richards, would vouch for him. His supervisor, Lieutenant Michael Barnes, had always had his back. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. He thought about Sarah, about her face when she had said she wouldn't lie for him anymore. The betrayal cut deep, but more than that, it infuriated him. She was his wife. She belonged to him. And that kid, Emma, she had caused all of this. If she hadn't run for help, none of this would have happened. When he got out, and he would get out, he would make them both pay. The police car pulled into the station, and as Derek was processed, photographed, and placed in a holding cell, he clung to that thought. This was temporary. He would fix this. He always fixed things. But what Derek Cole didn't know was that Emma's desperate run across the street had set in motion events that would expose the dark underbelly of domestic violence in law enforcement, would test the bonds of brotherhood among the desert riders, and would ultimately ask a simple but profound question: what does justice look like when the system meant to protect fails? 3 days after the incident, Sarah Mitchell sat in a small examination room at University Medical Center in Las Vegas, waiting for the doctor to return with her discharge papers. Her face was a patchwork of bruises, deep purple around her left eye, yellow-green along her jaw, and angry red marks on her throat where Derek's fingers had tried to crush her windpipe. 3 ribs were cracked, and her left wrist was sprained. The physical pain was considerable, but it was nothing compared to the emotional turmoil churning inside her. Emma sat beside her mother on the examination table, swinging her legs nervously. The little girl had barely left Sarah's side since the ambulance ride. She clutched a stuffed rabbit that one of the nurses had given her, but her eyes kept darting to the door as if expecting Derek to burst through at any moment. "Mommy, are we really safe?" Emma asked for the 10th time that morning. Sarah wanted to say yes, with absolute certainty, but she couldn't bring herself to lie. "We are safer than we were, baby. The doctors and nurses are taking good care of us." The truth was, Sarah had no idea what came next. They couldn't go back to the house, the yellow house that had been their prison for 3 years. She had no money, no job, and no family in Las Vegas. Her parents lived in Oregon, and their relationship had been strained ever since she married Derek. They had tried to warn her, had seen the red flags she'd ignored, and the distance between them had grown. A knock on the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Dr. Patricia Mendoza entered, a petite woman in her mid-40s with kind brown eyes and dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. She had been the attending physician when Sarah arrived in the ER, and her gentle competence had been a small comfort in the chaos. "How are you feeling, Sarah?" Dr. Mendoza asked, pulling up a stool. "Like I got hit by a truck," Sarah replied with a weak attempt at humor. Dr. Mendoza smiled sadly. "That's fairly accurate, unfortunately. I've reviewed all your scans and x-rays. The good news is that there's no internal bleeding, and your ribs, while cracked, should heal fine with rest. I'm going to prescribe pain medication and something to help you sleep." "Thank you," Sarah whispered. Dr. Mendoza's expression grew more serious. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about what happens next. Have you thought about where you'll go when you leave here?" The question hung in the air like a weight. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't know. I don't have anywhere to go." "I thought that might be the case," Dr. Mendoza said gently. She pulled out a pamphlet from her coat pocket. "This is information about Safe Haven House. It's a domestic violence shelter here in Las Vegas. They have resources, counseling, legal aid, and most importantly, a safe place for you and Emma to stay while you figure things out." Sarah took the pamphlet with trembling hands. The cover showed a serene image of a house with flowers in the window. It looked peaceful, normal, everything her life hadn't been for years. "They'll help me?" Sarah asked, her voice small. "They'll help you," Dr. Mendoza confirmed. "I've already called them and explained your situation. They're expecting you. A counselor named Jennifer Adams will meet you there. She specializes in cases like yours." "Cases where the abuser is a cop," Sarah said bitterly. Dr. Mendoza nodded. "Yes, it's more common than you might think, and it comes with unique challenges. But Jennifer is experienced, and Safe Haven House has helped many women in your exact situation." Emma tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Mommy, what's a shelter?" "It's a safe place, sweetie," Sarah explained, smoothing her daughter's hair. "A place where Derek can't find us." "But what about school?" Emma asked. "And Mr. Buttons, he's still at the house." The mention of the teddy bear made Sarah's heart ache. Mr. Buttons had been Emma's constant companion since she was 2 years old. "We'll figure it out, baby. I promise." Dr. Mendoza stood. "I'll have the nurse bring your discharge papers. There's also someone here who wants to see you, a Sergeant Linda Hayes from the police department. She has some questions about the case against your husband. Are you up for talking to her?" Sarah's stomach clenched with anxiety, but she nodded. "Yes, I'll talk to her." 10 minutes later, Sergeant Hayes entered the examination room. She wore her uniform crisply, her badge gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Her expression was professional, but not unkind. "Mrs. Cole," she began, then paused. "Or would you prefer Mitchell?" "Mitchell," Sarah said firmly. "I want nothing to do with his name anymore." "Understood. Ms. Mitchell, I need to update you on your husband's case. He was arraigned yesterday. The charges are assault with substantial bodily harm, domestic battery, and strangulation, which is a felony in Nevada." "What does that mean?" Sarah asked. "It means that if convicted, he's looking at significant prison time. The strangulation charge alone carries a sentence of 1 to 6 years. Combined with the other charges, he could be looking at a decade or more." For a moment, Sarah felt a surge of hope, but it was quickly tempered by reality. "But he's a cop. They'll protect him." Sergeant Hayes' jaw tightened. "I won't lie to you. There are people in the department who are already circling the wagons. His partner, Frank Richards, has been telling anyone who'll listen that this is all a misunderstanding. Lieutenant Barnes has been making calls. The union rep is all over this." "So he'll get away with it," Sarah said flatly, "like he always does." Not if I have anything to say about it, Sergeant Hayes replied, her voice hard. I've been documenting everything. I've interviewed the bikers who came to your aid. Their testimonies are solid. I've collected the evidence from your home, including photographs of the damage and the blood evidence. And most importantly, I have your testimony. My testimony, Sarah repeated. Will that be enough? It has to be, Sergeant Hayes said. Sarah, I know this is terrifying. I know you're probably thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. But you have to be strong. You have to be willing to testify in court, to tell your story, no matter how hard it is. Emma, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. My mommy is the strongest person in the world. Both women looked at the little girl. Despite everything she had been through, Emma's eyes were fierce with determination. Sergeant Hayes smiled. You know what, kiddo? I think you're absolutely right. After Sergeant Hayes left, a victim advocate named Melissa Torres arrived to transport Sarah and Emma to Safe Haven House. Melissa was a woman in her late 30s with warm, sympathetic eyes and an air of calm competence. She drove them through the streets of Las Vegas in an unmarked car, taking a circuitous route to ensure they weren't followed. Safe Haven House was located in an undisclosed area of the city, hidden behind high walls and security gates. As they pulled up, Sarah was struck by how normal it looked. A large ranch-style building with a well-maintained garden and children's toys scattered on the lawn. It's not a prison, Melissa explained, sensing Sarah's apprehension. It's a home. You're free to come and go as you please, but we ask that you don't share the location with anyone. Confidentiality is key to keeping everyone safe. Inside, the shelter was warm and welcoming. The walls were painted in soft colors, and there were photos of women and children smiling, thriving. A common area had comfortable couches, a television, and shelves lined with books. Sarah could hear children laughing somewhere in the building, and the sound was jarring after so much trauma. Jennifer Adams met them in the entrance hall. She was a tall woman with short-cropped auburn hair and an aura of quiet strength. Sarah, Emma, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Let me show you to your room. They followed Jennifer down a hallway to a small but clean room with 2 twin beds, a dresser, and a window overlooking the garden. It was simple, but it was theirs. You'll share a bathroom with the room next door, Jennifer explained. Meals are communal, breakfast at 8, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. We have counseling sessions, job training, legal assistance, and childcare. Emma, we also have a tutor who can help you keep up with your schoolwork. Emma's eyes lit up. Really? Really, Jennifer confirmed with a smile. And we have a playroom with lots of toys. I think you'll make friends here quickly. After Jennifer left them to settle in, Sarah sat on one of the beds and let the reality sink in. They were in a domestic violence shelter. This was her life now. The shame was overwhelming. How had she let things get this bad? How had she stayed with Derek for so long? What kind of mother was she to have exposed Emma to such violence? As if reading her thoughts, Emma climbed onto the bed and wrapped her arms around Sarah's neck. I love you, Mommy. Sarah held her daughter tight, tears streaming down her face. I love you too, baby. So, so much. Meanwhile, across the city, Derek Cole sat in his holding cell at the Clark County Detention Center, his rage simmering just below the surface. He had been denied bail, the judge citing the severity of the charges and his access to weapons as a police officer. The humiliation was unbearable. He was in a section of the jail, separated from the general population for his own safety. Cops in jail were prime targets and everyone knew it. His attorney, Martin Cooper, a high-priced criminal defense lawyer hired by the police union, had visited that morning with what he called a strategy. We're going to argue self-defense, Cooper had said, his expensive suit and gold watch gleaming even in the dingy visitor's room. We'll say that Sarah attacked you first, that you were defending yourself. We'll paint the bikers as the aggressors who broke into your home. And we'll emphasize your years of service to the community. What about Sarah's injuries? Derek had asked. Cooper had waved his hand dismissively. We'll say they occurred during the struggle, that you had to restrain her for her own safety. We'll get character witnesses, your colleagues, your supervisors. We'll show the jury that you're a dedicated officer who had a moment of stress, not an abuser. And Sarah's testimony. We'll discredit it, Cooper had said confidently. We'll suggest she's mentally unstable, that she's been influenced by those bikers. Trust me, Derek, I've won cases like this before. Now, alone in his cell, Derek clung to those words. He would beat this. He had to. Because the alternative, losing his badge, his freedom, his identity, was unthinkable. Back at Safe Haven House as night fell, Sarah lay in bed listening to Emma's soft breathing from across the room. For the first time in years, she felt the tiniest spark of something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could build a new life. Maybe they could heal. Maybe they could be free. But freedom, Sarah was about to learn, came with a price, and the fight for justice was only just beginning. A week after the incident, the Desert Riders Motorcycle Club gathered at their clubhouse on the outskirts of Las Vegas. The building was a converted warehouse with concrete floors, pool tables, a fully stocked bar, and walls covered with photos of rides, rallies, and brothers who had passed on. The atmosphere was usually one of camaraderie and laughter, but tonight the mood was tense. Bear stood at the head of the long wooden table where the club conducted its official business. Around him sat the core members: Preacher, Danny, Tommy, Victoria, Boomer, Chains, Ghost, and a dozen others. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and the weight of serious discussion. "All right, let's get down to it," Bear said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "We all know why we're here. What we did last week has consequences, and we need to talk about them." Tommy leaned forward, his weathered face serious. "I heard through the grapevine that Cole's attorney is planning to sue us. Civil suit for breaking and entering, assault, emotional distress, the whole 9 yards. "Let him try," Chain said, his jaw still slightly swollen from where Derek had punched him. "We saved that woman's life." "Saving her life doesn't mean we didn't break the law," Preacher said quietly. "We kicked down a man's door and physically restrained him. Legally speaking, we're in murky territory." Victoria, who had been researching Nevada law on her laptop, spoke up. "Actually, there's something called the necessity defense. It states that breaking the law is justified if it's done to prevent imminent harm. A woman being strangled qualifies. I talked to a lawyer friend of mine, and she thinks we have a solid defense if it comes to that." "That's good news," Bear said. "But there's another issue. I got a visit from a detective yesterday, guy named Walter Simmons. He was real friendly, real polite, but the message was clear: back off. Stop involving ourselves in Cole's case. Stop talking to the media. Just fade into the background." "Did he threaten you?" Danny asked, his mechanic's hands curling into fists. "Not directly," Bear replied, "but the implication was there. The department is closing ranks around Cole. They don't want this to become a big story. A decorated cop accused of domestic violence. It's bad PR." Boomer, the Vietnam veteran who had seen his share of institutional corruption, shook his head in disgust. "It's the same old story. The system protects its own, even when its own are rotten to the core." "So what do we do?" Ghost asked. His nickname came from his ability to move silently, a skill he had picked up during his years as a reconnaissance specialist in the army. "Do we back off like they want?" Bear looked around the table at his brothers and sister in leather. The Desert Riders weren't just a motorcycle club. They were a family, bound by loyalty and a shared code. That code included standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. "No," Bear said firmly, "we don't back off. We stand by what we did. We make sure Sarah and Emma are protected. And if that means going to war with the police department, then so be it." That's a dangerous road, Preacher warned. We're talking about taking on one of the most powerful institutions in the city. I know, Bear acknowledged, but I've been thinking about something. Cole isn't the first cop to abuse his family, and he won't be the last. How many other women are out there, trapped in the same situation, too scared to come forward because their husband wears a badge? If we can help bring justice in this case, maybe it sends a message. Maybe it helps someone else. The room fell silent as his words sank in. Then Victoria spoke, her voice strong. I'm in, whatever it takes. One by one, the others voiced their agreement. Chains, Danny, Tommy, Preacher, Boomer, Ghost, all of them committed to seeing this through. All right then, Bear said. Here's what we're going to do. Victoria, you keep researching the legal angles. Danny, you're in charge of logistics. If Sarah needs anything, we get it for her. Tommy and Chains, I want you to reach out to the community. There are other domestic violence organizations in the city, other advocates. Let's build a network. Preacher, you and I are going to pay a visit to Sergeant Hayes, see if there's any way we can support the prosecution's case. And everyone stays alert. If Cole's friends want to intimidate us, they'll have to get through all of us. As the meeting broke up and the members dispersed to their respective tasks, Bear stepped outside into the cool night air. The Nevada sky was clear, stars visible despite the glow of the city in the distance. He lit a cigarette and reflected on how a single moment, a little girl's desperate plea, had brought them to this point. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Melissa Torres, the victim advocate. Sarah wants to meet with you. Can you come to Safe Haven House tomorrow at 2 p.m? Bear replied immediately, I'll be there. The next afternoon, Bear rode his Harley to an industrial area where Melissa was waiting to escort him to the shelter. The location was kept secret for good reason, and he respected the security protocols. When he arrived at Safe Haven House, he was struck by how different it was from what he had expected. It wasn't cold or institutional. It felt like a real home. Melissa led him to a small conference room where Sarah was waiting. She looked better than she had in the hospital. Her bruises were fading, and there was a bit more life in her eyes. But the shadows of trauma still lingered. Mr. Thompson, Sarah said, standing to greet him. Thank you for coming. Please call me Marcus, or Bear if you prefer, he replied, shaking her hand gently. How are you holding up? I'm surviving, Sarah said with a weak smile. Emma and I are safe, and that's what matters. But I wanted to see you to say thank you. You and your friends saved our lives. I don't know how to repay that. You don't owe us anything, Bear said sincerely. We did what anyone should do. But not everyone would, Sarah countered. Most people would have looked the other way, told themselves it wasn't their business. You didn't. Why? Bear was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. I have a daughter. She's 25 now, living in California, doing well. But when she was Emma's age, her mother and I went through a divorce. It was messy, and there were times when I wasn't the man I should have been. I never hit them, but I was angry, distant. I saw the fear in my daughter's eyes, and it broke me. I swore I'd never be that man again, and I swore I'd never stand by if I saw someone else hurting their family. When Emma came running into that diner, all I could see was my little girl. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Your daughter is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her, Bear corrected. She taught me how to be better. They talked for another hour. Sarah told Bear about her life before Derek, about her dreams of becoming a nurse, about how slowly and insidiously the abuse had started. It was a familiar story. The isolation, the gradual erosion of self-worth, the fear that paralyzed her from leaving. I kept thinking it would get better, Sarah admitted. That if I just tried harder, was a better wife, didn't make him angry, then he would go back to being the man I married. But that man never really existed, did he? It was all a mask. Probably, Bear agreed. Abusers are good at wearing masks. They know how to charm people, how to seem like the perfect partner, the perfect cop, the perfect neighbor. It's only behind closed doors that the mask comes off. The trial is going to be hard, Sarah said, her voice trembling. His lawyer is already trying to destroy my credibility. They're saying I'm unstable, that I attacked Derek first, that I'm lying to cover for you and your friends. Do you have a lawyer? Bear asked. The prosecutor's office assigned a victim advocate, and there's a lawyer from the shelter helping me, but... Sarah trailed off, the unspoken concern hanging in the air. Would it be enough against Derek's expensive, union-funded defense team? I might be able to help with that, Bear said thoughtfully. I know someone. Her name is Catherine Grant. She's a civil rights attorney who's handled police misconduct cases. Let me reach out to her, see if she's willing to consult. I can't afford an attorney like that, Sarah said. Don't worry about the money, Bear replied. The club will cover it if necessary. You just focus on taking care of yourself and Emma. Later that evening, Bear made the call to Catherine Grant. He had met her 5 years ago when one of his club members had been wrongfully arrested and beaten by police. Catherine had taken the case pro bono and won a substantial settlement. She was known for being tough, relentless, and unafraid of powerful institutions. Bear, it's been a while. Catherine's voice came through the phone, warm but professional. What can I do for you? Bear explained the situation with Sarah and Derek Cole. Catherine listened without interrupting, and when he finished, there was a long pause. This is a big case, Catherine finally said. The police union is going to throw everything at it. They'll drag this woman through the mud, attack her character, try every legal trick in the book. I know, Bear said. That's why she needs someone like you. I'll need to meet with her, review all the evidence, talk to the prosecutors, Catherine said, her tone shifting into lawyer mode. But if what you're telling me is accurate, this is exactly the kind of case I'd take. Domestic violence in law enforcement is an epidemic that nobody wants to talk about. It's time someone did. So you'll help? I'll help, Catherine confirmed. But Bear, you need to understand something. This is going to get ugly. Cole and his supporters are going to come after everyone involved. Sarah, the witnesses, and yes, you and your club. Are you prepared for that? We're prepared, Bear said. We're all in. All right then, let's take this bastard down. As Bear hung up the phone, he felt a sense of grim satisfaction. The battle lines were drawn, and the fight was about to intensify. But they had something Derek Cole didn't: the truth and people willing to stand behind it. Across town, Derek Cole sat in his attorney's office, listening to Martin Cooper outline their strategy. The office was on the 20th floor of a gleaming downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the Las Vegas Strip. We've got some good news, Cooper said, shuffling through papers. The union is backing you 100%. They've issued a statement supporting you, calling this a witch hunt. We've also got 3 character witnesses lined up. Your partner Frank, Lieutenant Barnes, and Officer Kelly Morse, who'll testify that you're a dedicated officer with a spotless record. What about Sarah? Derek asked. We're working on that, Cooper replied. We've hired a private investigator to dig into her background. If there's anything we can use, past relationships, mental health issues, financial problems, we'll find it. We're also going to subpoena her medical records, see if there's any history of instability. Derek leaned back in the expensive leather chair, his mind working. And the bikers? They're the weak link, Cooper said with a predatory smile. They broke into your home, assaulted you. We'll argue that they were the real criminals, that they coerced Sarah into making false accusations. We'll paint them as violent thugs who are anti-police. It'll play well with a jury. What about the little girl? Derek asked. Emma saw everything. Cooper's expression grew more serious. That's trickier. Children are sympathetic witnesses, but she's only 8 years old. We can argue that she was confused, traumatized, that she doesn't fully understand what she saw. If necessary, we can have her testimony challenged on competency grounds." Derek nodded slowly. The plan was solid. He'd always been good at manipulation, at controlling narratives. This was just another situation to manage, another problem to solve. "One more thing," Cooper added. "Stay away from Sarah and Emma. No contact, no messages, nothing. Any violation of the protective order will hurt our case. I know it's frustrating, but you need to play this smart." "I understand," Derek said, though inside he was seething. The idea that he couldn't even contact his own wife and stepdaughter was infuriating. But he would bide his time. He would play the long game. As Derek left the attorney's office and headed back to the detention center, he allowed himself a cold smile. Everyone thought they could take him down, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. He had spent 15 years learning how to navigate the system, how to exploit its weaknesses. He would beat these charges, and when he did, there would be hell to pay. 4 months later, the trial of Derek Cole began at the Regional Justice Center in downtown Las Vegas. The courthouse was a modern building of glass and steel, its marble floors echoing with the footsteps of lawyers, defendants, and families seeking justice. Outside, a small group of protesters had gathered, holding signs that read, "End police domestic violence and believe survivors." The media presence was substantial. Local news vans lined the street, and reporters jockeyed for position. Inside courtroom 7B, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Sarah Mitchell sat at the prosecution table beside Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Walsh, a veteran prosecutor in her early 50s with silver-streaked black hair and a reputation for never backing down from tough cases. Behind Sarah in the gallery sat Emma with Melissa Torres, the victim advocate. The little girl clutched her stuffed rabbit and tried to be brave, though her eyes kept darting nervously toward the defense table where Derek sat. Derek looked every inch the professional law enforcement officer. His attorney had dressed him in a dark blue suit, white shirt, and conservative tie. His hair was neatly trimmed, and his expression was one of calm confidence. Beside him sat Martin Cooper and his team of 3 associates, all looking expensive and formidable. Also in the gallery were the Desert Riders. Bear, Victoria, Preacher, Danny, Tommy, Chains, and several others had come to show their support. Their presence was a statement. Sarah was not alone. Judge Margaret Richardson, a stern woman in her late 60s with sharp eyes and no tolerance for nonsense, entered the courtroom. Everyone rose as she took her seat. "Please be seated," Judge Richardson said. "We are here for the trial of the state of Nevada versus Derek Michael Cole. The defendant is charged with assault with substantial bodily harm, domestic battery, and felony strangulation. Ms. Walsh, is the state ready to proceed?" "Yes, Your Honor," Jennifer Walsh replied, standing. "Mr. Cooper, is the defense ready?" "We are, Your Honor," Martin Cooper said smoothly. "Very well. We'll begin with opening statements. Ms. Walsh, you may proceed." Jennifer Walsh stood and approached the jury box. The jury consisted of 7 women and 5 men, ranging in age from mid-20s to late 60s, representing a cross-section of Las Vegas residents. She made eye contact with each of them as she began. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about power and abuse. Derek Cole is a police officer, someone who took an oath to protect and serve, but inside his home, he was a different man. He was a man who used his fists to terrorize his wife, Sarah Mitchell. He was a man who created an atmosphere of such fear that his 8-year-old stepdaughter learned to recognize the warning signs of violence. On July 17th, that violence escalated to attempted murder." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "The evidence will show that Derek Cole strangled Sarah Mitchell until she nearly lost consciousness. He beat her so badly that she suffered cracked ribs, a sprained wrist, and extensive bruising. And he did this while his stepdaughter watched in terror. Emma Mitchell, 8 years old, was so frightened for her mother's life that she ran across the street to beg strangers for help. Those strangers, members of a motorcycle club, heard Sarah's screams and intervened. They saved her life. Jennifer Walsh turned slightly, gesturing toward the defense table. The defense will try to tell you a different story. They'll try to paint Sarah as mentally unstable, as a liar. They'll try to paint the bikers who saved her as criminals. They'll try to suggest that Derek Cole, a decorated police officer, is the real victim here. But the evidence doesn't lie, the medical records don't lie, and Sarah Mitchell's testimony won't lie. She returned to her seat, and Judge Richardson nodded to Martin Cooper. "Mr. Cooper, your opening statement." Martin Cooper rose, buttoning his suit jacket as he approached the jury. His demeanor was confident, almost casual, as if he were having a friendly conversation rather than defending a man accused of felony domestic violence. "Ladies and gentlemen, my client, Officer Derek Cole, has dedicated 15 years of his life to protecting the people of Las Vegas. He's received commendations for bravery. He's mentored young officers. He's put his life on the line every single day to keep this community safe. And now he sits here accused of a terrible crime, a crime he did not commit." Cooper's voice was smooth, persuasive. "What happened on July 17th was tragic, but it wasn't what the prosecution wants you to believe. Yes, there was a confrontation between Derek and Sarah. Yes, Sarah was injured. But the question you need to ask yourselves is, who started that confrontation? The evidence will show that Sarah Mitchell has a history of emotional instability, that she attacked Derek first, and that he was forced to defend himself." He gestured toward where the desert riders sat in the gallery. And then a group of bikers, criminals with records, people who hate police, broke into Officer Cole's home and assaulted him. They have twisted this situation to fit their anti-police narrative, and they've convinced Sarah to lie to protect them. Cooper's voice took on a tone of righteous indignation. "This isn't about justice. This is about destroying a good man's career and reputation. And I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, to see through the lies and deliver a verdict of not guilty." As the opening statements concluded, Sarah felt her hands trembling. Cooper's words stung, the suggestion that she was unstable, that she was lying, that Derek was the victim. But Jennifer Walsh leaned over and whispered, "Don't let him get to you. That's what he wants. We have the truth on our side." The prosecution's first witness was Dr. Patricia Mendoza, the ER doctor who had treated Sarah. She took the stand and was sworn in. "Dr. Mendoza," Jennifer Walsh began, "can you describe Sarah Mitchell's condition when she arrived at the hospital on July 17th? "She was in severe distress," Dr. Mendoza replied. "She had extensive bruising on her face, throat, and torso. She had extensive bruising on her face, throat, and torso. 3 ribs were cracked. Her left wrist was sprained. But the most concerning injuries were the petechial hemorrhages in her eyes and the bruising around her neck." "Can you explain what petechial hemorrhages indicate?" Walsh asked. "They're tiny broken blood vessels in the eyes, typically caused by strangulation," Dr. Mendoza explained. "They occur when pressure is applied to the neck, cutting off blood flow to the head. The bruising pattern on Sarah's throat was consistent with manual strangulation, meaning someone's hands were around her neck, squeezing. In your medical opinion, was Sarah Mitchell's life in danger?" "Absolutely," Dr. Mendoza said firmly. "Strangulation is one of the most lethal forms of domestic violence. Studies show that if an abuser has strangled their victim once, the likelihood of them eventually killing that victim increases 7-fold. Sarah was minutes away from losing consciousness permanently when those men intervened." Martin Cooper stood for cross-examination, his expression skeptical. "Dr. Mendoza, you testified about Sarah Mitchell's injuries, but you didn't witness how they occurred, did you?" No, I did not, Dr. Mendoza admitted. So you can't say with certainty whether those injuries were sustained during an attack or during a struggle where she was the aggressor, can you? The pattern of injuries is consistent with defensive wounds and being attacked, not being the aggressor, Dr. Mendoza replied calmly. But you're not a forensic expert, are you, Doctor? Cooper pressed. I'm an emergency medicine physician with 15 years of experience treating domestic violence victims. I know what these injuries indicate. Cooper moved on, unable to shake her testimony. The next witness was Sergeant Linda Hayes. She took the stand with military precision, her uniform crisp, her demeanor professional. Jennifer Walsh led her through the events of July 17th, the 911 call, arriving at the scene, finding Sarah beaten and Derek being restrained by the bikers. Sergeant Hayes described the blood on the kitchen floor, the overturned furniture, and most importantly, Derek's demeanor. He was angry, Sergeant Hayes testified. Not concerned about his wife's injuries, not remorseful, just angry that he had been restrained and that we were there. Did Officer Cole make any statements to you? Walsh asked. Yes. He repeatedly insisted that he was the victim, that the bikers had attacked him, and that Sarah would confirm his story. He seemed confident that we would take his side because he was a fellow officer. Did that influence your investigation? Sergeant Hayes' jaw tightened. No. I've been on the force for 20 years, and I believe in following the evidence, not protecting bad cops. The evidence clearly showed that Sarah Mitchell was the victim of a brutal assault. During cross-examination, Cooper tried to suggest that Sergeant Hayes had a bias against Derek, but she remained unshakable. I have no personal vendetta against Officer Cole. I simply did my job and followed the evidence. The prosecution then called Marcus Bear Thompson to the stand. Bear wore clean jeans, a button-down shirt, and his leather vest with the Desert Rider's patch. He looked every bit the formidable man he was, but his voice was measured and calm as he recounted Emma running into the diner. She was terrified, Bear said, his voice thick with emotion. She was crying barefoot with marks on her arm. She said, "They're beating my mother. He's killing her." What would you do if a child came to you like that? So you took it upon yourself to break into Officer Cole's home? Cooper asked during cross-examination, his tone dripping with condescension. I didn't break in. The door was unlocked after Emma ran out, Bear replied. And yes, I went in because I heard a woman screaming for her life. I'm not going to stand by and let someone die when I can help. But you assaulted Officer Cole, didn't you? I restrained a man who was strangling a woman, Bear corrected. There's a difference. Cooper produced Bear's criminal record. 2 arrests from 20 years ago, 1 for assault, 1 for disorderly conduct. You have a history of violence, don't you, Mr. Thompson? I have a history of defending people who can't defend themselves, Bear replied evenly. 20 years ago, I stopped a man from beating his girlfriend in a bar parking lot. I'd do it again. The courtroom was silent as Bear stepped down. In the gallery, Victoria squeezed Preacher's hand. The testimony was going well, but the hardest part was yet to come. Sarah's testimony. On the 3rd day of the trial, Sarah Mitchell took the stand. She wore a simple blue dress, her blonde hair pulled back, her face bare of makeup so the jury could see the fading bruises. Her hands trembled as she was sworn in, but her voice was clear. Jennifer Walsh approached gently. Sarah, can you tell the jury how you met Derek Cole? Sarah took a deep breath. I met him 4 years ago at a hospital fundraiser. I was a nursing student at the time, and he was there representing the police department. He was charming, attentive, he seemed perfect. When did things change? About 6 months after we got married, Sarah said. The first time he hit me, he blamed it on stress at work. He apologized, bought me flowers, promised it would never happen again. I believed him. Over the next hour, Sarah detailed the escalating abuse, The verbal attacks that eroded her self-esteem, the isolation from friends and family, the increasing physical violence. She described living in constant fear, walking on eggshells, trying desperately to avoid triggering Derek's rage. "Why didn't you leave?" Walsh asked gently. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "He told me that if I ever tried to leave, he would kill me. He said he was a cop, that no one would believe me, that he would make sure I never saw Emma again. I was terrified. And part of me had been so broken down that I believed I deserved it." "Can you tell the jury what happened on July 17th? Sarah's voice shook as she recounted that terrible afternoon. Derek's anger over dinner not being ready, Emma trying to protect her, Derek's fists, his hands around her throat. "I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. Everything was going dark, and all I could think was that Emma would be left alone with him." The jury was riveted. Several jurors had tears in their eyes. Sarah identified photographs of her injuries, her voice breaking as she explained each bruise, each mark. Then came Cooper's cross-examination. He stood, straightened his tie, and approached Sarah with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ms. Mitchell, you testified that you were afraid of my client, yet you stayed with him for 3 years. That doesn't sound very afraid to me." "I was terrified," Sarah replied. "That's why I stayed. He controlled everything, the money, where I went, who I talked to, and he made it clear what would happen if I left. Or maybe you stayed because you were living off his salary, enjoying the benefits of being married to a police officer." Jennifer Walsh shot to her feet. "Objection, argumentative and assuming facts not in evidence." "Sustained," Judge Richardson said sharply. "Mr. Cooper, watch yourself." Cooper shifted tactics. "You testified that my client attacked you without provocation, but isn't it true that you have a history of emotional instability?" "No," Sarah said firmly. Cooper produced medical records. "These records show that 2 years ago you were prescribed antidepressants by your doctor. Isn't that evidence of mental health issues?" "I was depressed because I was being abused," Sarah replied, her voice growing stronger. "My doctor knew about the situation. The medication was to help me cope with the trauma of living with your client." "You also testified that you had no bruises or injuries prior to July 17th. But hospital records show you visited the ER twice in the past year with injuries. Why didn't you report the abuse then?" Sarah's voice cracked. "Because I was afraid. Because Derek coached me on what to say. Because he convinced me that no one would believe me." Cooper hammered at her for another 30 minutes, trying to poke holes in her testimony, suggesting she was exaggerating, lying, manipulating the jury. But Sarah held firm. She had come too far to back down now. When Sarah finally stepped down from the stand, exhausted and emotionally drained, she looked at Emma in the gallery. Her daughter gave her a small, brave smile, and Sarah felt a surge of strength. She was doing this for Emma, to show her daughter that the truth mattered, that standing up to abuse was possible. The prosecution rested its case. Now it was the defense's turn. Martin Cooper called Derek Cole to the stand. Derek looked directly at the jury, his expression one of wounded dignity. He testified that he loved Sarah, that he had never intentionally hurt her, that on July 17th she had attacked him first. "I came home from a 12-hour shift," Derek said, his voice steady. "I was tired, stressed. Sarah and I had an argument about dinner. She became hysterical, started throwing things. I tried to calm her down, but she attacked me. I had to restrain her to protect both of us." "And the bikers?" Cooper asked. "They broke into my home and assaulted me," Derek said. "I tried to explain that I was a police officer, that there had been a misunderstanding, but they wouldn't listen. They wanted to make me look like the bad guy." During Jennifer Walsh's cross-examination, she dismantled Derek's story piece by piece. "Officer Cole, you claim Sarah attacked you first, yet you have no injuries. How do you explain that?" "She's not very strong," Derek replied. but she's strong enough to require you to strangle her until she nearly lost consciousness." Derek's face flushed. "I never strangled her. I was restraining her." Walsh produced photographs of Sarah's neck. "These are strangulation marks, Officer Cole." "Doctor, Mendoza testified that they were life-threatening. Are you saying Dr. Mendoza is lying?" "I'm saying the injuries were accidental, sustained during the struggle." "And Emma, your stepdaughter testified in a closed session that she saw you beating her mother. Is an 8-year-old child lying too?" "She was confused, traumatized," Derek said. "She didn't understand what she was seeing." Walsh's voice was ice. "Or maybe she understood perfectly. Maybe she saw exactly what you are, a man who uses his badge and his fists to terrorize his family." "Objection!" Cooper shouted. "Withdrawn!" Walsh said with satisfaction. She had made her point. The defense called character witnesses, Derek's partner, Frank Richards, who testified that Derek was a dedicated officer, Lieutenant Barnes, who praised Derek's service record, Officer Kelly Morse, who said she had never seen any signs of abuse. But under cross-examination, Walsh revealed that none of them had ever been to Derek's home, had never seen him interact with Sarah in private, and had no first-hand knowledge of his behavior behind closed doors. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Closing arguments were passionate on both sides. Jennifer Walsh urged the jury to believe Sarah, to recognize that domestic violence thrives in silence and that Derek's badge did not give him the right to abuse his wife. Martin Cooper argued that the prosecution had failed to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt, that Sarah's testimony was unreliable, and that Derek was the victim of a rush to judgment. The jury deliberated for 3 days. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, word came that they had reached a verdict. The courtroom filled quickly. Sarah sat between Jennifer Walsh and Melissa Torres, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Behind her, Bear and the Desert Riders formed a wall of support. Derek sat at the defense table, his expression unreadable. Judge Richardson entered, and everyone rose. "Please be seated. Has the jury reached a verdict?" The jury foreman, a middle-aged woman named Carol Bennett, stood. "We have, Your Honor." "What say you?" Carol Bennett looked directly at Derek Cole. "On the charge of assault with substantial bodily harm, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of domestic battery, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of felony strangulation, we find the defendant guilty." The courtroom erupted. Sarah burst into tears, collapsing into Jennifer Walsh's arms. Emma cried out, "We won, Mommy. We won." The Desert Riders cheered. Derek's face went pale, then flushed with rage. He lunged toward the prosecution table, but bailiffs immediately restrained him. "You lying bitch," Derek shouted at Sarah. "You'll pay for this." "I'll make you pay." Judge Richardson's gavel crashed down. "Order! Bailiff, remove the defendant." As Derek was dragged from the courtroom, still shouting threats, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in years. Freedom. It wasn't complete. The sentencing was still to come, and Derek's words echoed in her mind. But for the first time, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she and Emma could build a life free from fear. 6 months after the verdict, Derek Cole sat in High Desert State Prison, 3 hours outside Las Vegas. Judge Richardson had sentenced him to 12 years, the maximum allowed under Nevada law for his combined offenses. His badge had been stripped, his pension revoked, and his appeals had been systematically denied. The man who had once wielded power with impunity was now just another inmate. Prison had been harsh for Derek. Former cops were pariahs behind bars, and despite being in a protective wing, he had been assaulted twice by inmates who had their own histories with abusive authority figures. The man who had inflicted terror on others now lived in fear himself. His requests for early parole were denied. The parole board's notes were clear. Defendant shows no remorse. continued danger to public safety. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, Sarah Mitchell was building a new life. She and Emma had stayed at Safe Haven House for 4 months, while Sarah completed a nursing program accelerated for her circumstances. Catherine Grant, the civil rights attorney, had helped Sarah file for divorce, which was finalized 3 months after Derek's conviction. Sarah had also filed a civil suit against Derek for damages, which she won by default when he failed to respond from prison. With financial assistance from the Desert Riders, who had organized fundraisers for her education, Sarah graduated with her nursing license. She found work at University Medical Center, the same hospital where Dr. Patricia Mendoza had treated her. Dr. Mendoza had become a mentor, helping Sarah navigate her new career and heal from her trauma. On a warm Saturday morning in February, Sarah and Emma moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood. It wasn't much. Modest furniture from thrift stores, second-hand dishes, and Emma's bedroom decorated with posters the little girl had chosen herself. But it was theirs. No one could hurt them here. Emma, now 9 years old, had blossomed. The fearful, traumatized child who had run crying to the bikers was now confident and outgoing. She attended counseling twice a week with a child psychologist specializing in trauma, and while the scars of what she had witnessed would always be with her, she was learning to process them in healthy ways. She had also maintained her friendship with the Desert Riders, particularly Victoria, who had become like an aunt to her. The motorcycle club had essentially adopted Emma and Sarah, checking in regularly, helping with moves, and providing a sense of family that Sarah's estranged parents had never offered. On moving day, Bear, Victoria, Preacher, Danny, Tommy, Chains, and several other club members showed up with a truck full of furniture they had pooled money to buy. They spent the day assembling beds, hanging curtains, and filling the apartment with laughter. "You didn't have to do all this," Sarah said, overwhelmed with gratitude as she watched Bear assemble Emma's new bed. "Yes, we did," Bear replied, tightening a bolt. "You're family now. That's what family does." Victoria was in the kitchen with Emma organizing dishes. "Your mom is pretty amazing, you know that," Victoria said. Emma nodded seriously. "She's the bravest person I know. She stood up to Derek even when she was scared." "You were pretty brave too," Victoria said. "Running to us that day took courage." "I had to," Emma said simply. "He was killing her. I couldn't let that happen." Victoria hugged the little girl, blinking back tears. In Emma, she saw the resilience of the human spirit. The capacity for children to be far stronger than adults gave them credit for. Later that evening, after the furniture was assembled and the Desert Riders had left with promises to return for dinner soon, Sarah and Emma stood in their living room. Boxes were still scattered everywhere, and there was much work to be done, but the apartment felt like home in a way the Yellow House never had. "Mummy, are we really safe now?" Emma asked. It was a question she still asked periodically, needing reassurance. "Yes, baby," Sarah said, kneeling to look Emma in the eyes. "Derek is in prison. He can't hurt us anymore, and we have friends who will always protect us." "The bikers," Emma said with a smile. "The bikers," Sarah confirmed. "And Dr. Mendoza and Sergeant Hayes and Miss Jennifer and Miss Melissa. We're not alone anymore." That night, after Emma had fallen asleep in her new bed, Sarah sat on her small balcony, looking out over the city lights of Las Vegas. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the years of abuse, the terror of July 17th, the trial, and now this fragile but real freedom. She thought about the women still trapped in abusive relationships, too afraid to leave, convinced they had no options. She thought about the children watching violence unfold in their homes, learning terrible lessons about power and love, and she made a decision. The following week, Sarah contacted Jennifer Adams at Safe Haven House. "I want to help," Sarah said. I want to volunteer to talk to other women to show them that escape is possible." Jennifer smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. We need advocates who've been through it, who understand the fear and the complexity. Would you be willing to share your story?" "Yes," Sarah said without hesitation. "If it helps even one person, it's worth it." Over the next months, Sarah became a regular volunteer at Safe Haven House. She led support groups, sat with newly arrived women who were terrified and traumatized, and shared her story of survival. Her testimony was powerful because it was real. She didn't minimize the difficulty of leaving, didn't pretend that healing was quick or easy. But she also showed that it was possible, that a life free from violence was achievable. Emma, inspired by her mother's advocacy, started a project at her elementary school about recognizing signs of abuse and knowing how to ask for help. Her teacher, Mrs. Rebecca Lawson, was initially hesitant. It was a heavy topic for fourth graders, but Emma was insistent. "Kids need to know they can get help," Emma told Mrs. Lawson. "I didn't know I could tell a teacher or call 911. I thought we were stuck. If I had known sooner, maybe Derek wouldn't have hurt my mum for so long." Mrs. Lawson, moved by Emma's determination, approved the project. Emma created a presentation with colorful posters showing safe adults to talk to, the number for the child abuse hotline, and a simple message: "It's not your fault, and you deserve to be safe." When Emma presented her project to the class, several children approached her afterward with their own stories. Mrs. Lawson immediately contacted the school counselor, and 2 cases of abuse were reported to Child Protective Services. Emma's courage had created a ripple effect, helping children she didn't even know. Meanwhile, the impact of Derek Cole's conviction reverberated through the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Sergeant Linda Hayes was promoted to lieutenant, and she immediately implemented new protocols for handling domestic violence cases involving officers. The department partnered with Safe Haven House to provide training on recognizing and reporting officer-involved domestic violence. It wasn't a perfect solution. Institutional change was slow, and there were still officers who closed ranks around abusive colleagues. But it was a start. Derek Cole's case had forced the department to confront an uncomfortable truth: that the badge did not make someone immune to being an abuser, and that protecting bad cops ultimately harmed everyone. The Desert Riders also experienced change. Their intervention in Sarah and Emma's lives had brought media attention, and while some of it was negative, sensationalized stories about vigilante bikers, much of it was positive. They received dozens of messages from domestic violence survivors thanking them, and several requests from people asking for help in similar situations. Bear, Victoria, and the others started working with local domestic violence organizations to create a network. They trained on how to properly intervene, how to work with law enforcement rather than against them, and how to provide support without overstepping legal boundaries. The Desert Riders became known not just as a motorcycle club, but as advocates and protectors. 1 year after the trial, Jennifer Walsh, the prosecutor, organized a recognition ceremony honoring those who had contributed to bringing Derek Cole to justice. Sarah was there, along with Emma, the Desert Riders, Sergeant Hayes, Dr. Mendoza, and others who had played a role. As Walsh presented certificates of commendation, she spoke about the importance of believing survivors, of standing up to abuse, regardless of the abuser's position or power. "This case could have gone very differently," Walsh said. "Sarah could have been too afraid to testify. The bikers could have decided it wasn't their business. Sergeant Hayes could have protected a fellow officer. But instead, everyone in this room chose courage over convenience, truth over complicity. You saved lives and you sent a message. Domestic violence will not be tolerated, no matter who the abuser is." Emma stood on stage beside her mother, holding a certificate that read, "In recognition of extraordinary bravery." She looked out at the audience and saw Bear, who winked at her. She saw Victoria, who was wiping away tears. She saw all the people who had fought for them when they couldn't fight for themselves. At home that evening, Sarah framed Emma's certificate and hung it in her daughter's bedroom. "I'm so proud of you, baby," Sarah said. "I'm proud of you too, Mommy," Emma replied. "You're a survivor." "We both are," Sarah said, hugging her daughter tightly. As spring turned to summer in Las Vegas, Sarah and Emma continued to heal and thrive. Sarah was promoted to a supervisory position at the hospital. Emma excelled in school, her nightmares becoming less frequent. They attended therapy regularly, building coping strategies and processing their trauma. They also celebrated milestones they had never been able to celebrate with Derek. Emma's 10th birthday party was a joyous affair at a park, with the desert riders grilling burgers and a group of Emma's school friends running wild on the playground. There was laughter, cake, and the simple freedom of not having to worry about someone's anger ruining the day. Sarah even began dating, tentatively and carefully. She met Marcus Chen, a high school teacher, through a mutual friend. He was kind, patient, and understood when Sarah needed space or time. There was no rush, no pressure, just the slow building of trust and affection. Emma approved of him, which mattered enormously to Sarah. On a quiet evening in August, Sarah sat on her balcony with a cup of tea, watching the sun set over the desert. She thought about how far she and Emma had come. The journey hadn't been easy. There were still hard days, moments when fear crept back in, times when Emma had nightmares about Derek. But they were healing, and more importantly, they were free. Her phone buzzed with a text from Bear. "Ride tomorrow." Emma mentioned she wants to try sitting on a motorcycle. Sarah smiled and typed back, "She's been asking non-stop. See you at 10 a.m. The next morning, Emma sat on Bear's Harley, wearing a helmet far too big for her, her face lit up with excitement. "Can we really ride?" she asked. "Just around the parking lot," Bear said with a laugh. "Baby steps." As Bear slowly drove the motorcycle in a wide circle, Emma, in front of him securely held, she threw her arms up and laughed with pure joy. Sarah watched, her heart full. This was what freedom looked like. A little girl who had once run barefoot and terrified across a street was now laughing, unafraid, surrounded by people who loved and protected her. In his prison cell, Derek Cole sat alone, his future measured in years behind bars. His appeals had failed. His colleagues had abandoned him. His name was synonymous with disgrace. The power he had once wielded was gone, replaced by the powerlessness he had inflicted on others. But in the world outside those prison walls, Sarah and Emma Mitchell were living proof that abuse does not have to be a life sentence, that courage can come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes justice prevails. Emma's desperate run to the bikers had saved not just her mother's life, but their future. And in doing so, she had shown that even the smallest voice, the most frightened child, could change everything.